All right, everybody, to understand this next this next chapter of our Fallout Bethesda story, I think we need to rewind the clocks back to the balmy year of 2013. I almost said December of 2013. An article was posted December 11th, 2013. Jason Schreier, working at Kotaku, back when Kotaku did reporting that made sense. He posted an article describing how he had come into possession of an audition script. Okay, an audition script. As you can see, although some of the details I've seen may have been written simply for the casting call, and any of the dialogue could be changed by the time of the next Fallout is actually released, they're interesting to read though. Here's what could be the game's intro, for example. Quote, war never changes. It's the classic introduction used at the beginning of Fallouts 1, 2, and 3. That speech is typically narrated by actor Ron Perlman, although this page seems to suggest the player character will read the monologue this time around. Other documents describe a mission set in the Institute, Fallout's post-war or post-apocalyptic version of MIT, and references to other Fallout locations that have been mentioned but never shown in games, like the Commonwealth, which comprises what's left of Massachusetts. One character in the document, who again may not show up in the actual game, is named Preston Garvey. One script describes a mission in which Garvey sends you to salvage a fusion core from a museum in the Commonwealth. They also describe other things, like other characters in Fallout's Wasteland, like radio DJ named Travis Miles, engineer named Sturgis, who is described as a cross between Buddy Holly and Vin Diesel. Casting calls for both male and female versions of the player character. Note that the player character begins the game in a cryogenic sleep chamber. Oh, so he put all this stuff out, okay? Put all this stuff out, and it ended up being a real document, okay? This was an actual leaked casting call document that they used to cast for the main characters of Fallout 4. Jason Schreier got this, put the report out, and was subsequently blacklisted by Bethesda forever. Okay. They were quite upset. Todd was big mad, and he banned Jason from any sort of stuff that had anything to do with them, blacklisted him, refused to do interviews, refused to give any outlets he worked with any sort of nugget of a report or anything. Really pissed about it, okay? That held true for years and years and years. However, it seems today that has changed. As part of Asha's initiative to put out more information about Bethesda and what they're working on, it seems she has told Todd to grow up and to get over it. And she has sent him out to do interviews, specifically with Windows Central, and then also with Jason Schreier. And as you can see in the thumbnail of his video, whoops, blacklist, oh my God, blacklist lifted. I interviewed Todd Howard for the first time in 15 years. Now, I've not seen this. I don't know what they discuss, if anything. It might just be a total, waste of time, but I kind of want to see it. And then we can take a look at also the Windows Central interview as well, because as you can see in this, they talked to him a little bit about his overall expectations for what they're doing. Bethesda said that's making investments to bring its core teams closer together with a view of building titles faster, providing them support for longer, for decades to come, kind of laying the foundation for what they plan to do through the 2030s, effectively. Nothing outlined here is particularly surprising. Like, everything that was outlined in this post from Bethesda is just, we're doubling down on creations. We're doubling down on the live service stuff. Starfield's getting more content. Fallout is being worked on. You'll see it eventually. Like, none of this is particularly surprising. Full confirmation of Fallout 3 and New Vegas remakes, or they didn't say remakes, they said remasters in their post. So they specifically described Fallout, remasters. They didn't say remakes. This is in the official Bethesda post, is remaster. So none of this is really surprising. And if anything, it's kind of frustrating that they are doubling down on a lot of this. But let's hear what Todd had to say in the interview with Jason. Okay, let's see.
Hello, One Take Schreier here. Yesterday, I got an unusual call, a call that I did not expect from the people at Xbox and Bethesda. They said, hey, would you like to speak with Todd Howard? And I said, of course I would like.
Nah. Can you imagine? I'm busy.
To speak with Todd Howard. Todd Howard, if you're not familiar, is the longtime director at Bethesda Game Studios. He directed Morrowind and Oblivion and Skyrim, all of those Elder Scrolls, most recent Elder Scrolls games. He directed all of the most recent Fallout games, Fallout 3, Fallout 4. And he is someone who also directed Starfield. He is someone who I've had a lot of respect for, who I've gotten a chance to talk to in the past 15 years ago, but haven't talked to on the record since then. I've seen him at events, and we've
On the record. No, at like events, you might say hi or, a handshake, but professionally, they've not done anything. Louder, please. I can, give me a second.
kind of chatted casually, but haven't had any proper interviews since then. And there's a pretty wild reason behind that and some interesting backstory. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But first, I want to actually get to the news that they are announcing today and some of the stuff that he told me in this interview. And then later on, I'll explain why it's been 15 years since I've talked to him and how that actually changed. So what's the news? Well, last week, Xbox and their new CEO, Asha Sharma, announced the big changes that they are making to the Xbox organization. They announced a whole lot of layoffs, 3,200 job cuts, 1,600 last week, another 1,600 to come. And as I explored in my previous video, it's actually a lot more than that because of vendors and co-dev studios and all the other kind of ripple effects of that. They also said that they were going to double down on some of their biggest franchises, including Fallout and The Elder Scrolls, which, like, again, can we just appreciate how insane it is to be like, we are choosing to double down on our biggest stuff that makes us the most money, which implies they hadn't done that yet before. Like, it's crazy. It's outrageous. Like, that you have some of the biggest IP in the industry and you're just not going to double down. Like, it really goes to show you. I think Phil was asleep at the wheel for the last handful of years. Like, it just absolutely mind-boggling. You have a cash cow, and like literally, they have a goose in the backyard that lays golden eggs just back there, chilling. And then they're sitting in the living room. How are we going to make ends meet this month? How are we going to pay the bills? I don't know. I guess I could go down to the street corner and do like a little dance or something, see what happens. If only we had a way to make some money quickly. If only we had something valuable, squawk, plop, like that. It's ridiculous. It is utterly ridiculous that they had this cash cow all this time and didn't push Todd to like shove out a New Vegas remaster, remake or something. It's absolutely ridiculous. Are the two studios at Bethesda Game Studios and Todd Howard are
$5 is $5.
The two franchises that Bethesda Game
I know my
Studios
worth.
and Todd Howard are responsible for. And so this morning, July 17th, they made some announcements to kind of reflect that plan. They laid out a roadmap in a way that I thought was really interesting. So here's the top line. Big news is they're officially...
I think he said top line, but it sounded like Todd line, which I like more.
Way that I thought was really interesting. So here's the top line. Big news is they're officially announcing Fallout 5. I don't think they've said anything. I think they've said they're going to work on a new Fallout game like after Elder Scrolls 6, which is their next game, but they haven't officially called it Fallout 5 as far as
Well, what Todd said in his interview with Greg Miller was that he didn't want to say that was next. He said it comes after Elder Scrolls 6. That's what he said. I made a video on this describing how Todd seemed to be walking back his comments about Fallout 5. And it could be that he was just like trying to be playful or wordy or whatever. Yeah, this, okay? There was one moment in this interview. Is this it?
That could change based on the interest from the show.
I'm going to avoid putting dates on anything. I've learned that the hard way. So obviously, our focus.
She's not even asking about dates. She's asking about timeline, like order of things. She's like, is it next? And he will refuse to say it's next. Once more. He says, I don't want to put dates on things. I don't want to put dates on things. She didn't ask you to put dates on it, Todd. You slippery little fella. You know what you're doing. He didn't want to put dates on it. She didn't ask about dates. She asked, is it coming next? And he's like, I don't want to put dates on it.
We are going to do that in Fallout 5. But I think the intent of when you see that, it's how we approached it. I think it's one thing that's unique about this sort of, we'll call it, genre translation of something, whether it's a game or a comic or some other book, is that it wasn't a translation of an existing story. It was, what would the next thing be? It just happens to be a TV show. And that.
Yeah. It sure do. It sure do be do. I mean, he says we are doing that with Fallout 5. So he says he has ideas, things they might have wanted to do in the show. He specifically said, don't do that. We want to do that. So again, kind of reinforces the idea that BGS, Todd, his team, they want to do it. They don't want to hand it off to some totally separate developer. Yeah, imagine if they had to do that. That'd be terrible. That'd be the worst. That would just tragic if they had to do that. To be clear, like there's one snippet from, I thought it was a Greg Miller interview. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just like crashing out over it. Because in this video, it's like 40 minutes long. I go through a lot of these. Oh, is this it? Hold on. I think this is it. I think I found it.
I want to do that. That'll be next.
That was more of like a general, it will clearly be after Elder Scrolls 6 at some point.
Okay,
That's like, let me clarify that.
So just to be clear, Todd in this clip refuses to say Fallout 5 is after Elder Scrolls 6.
You said it's in pre-production. And then last year when we talked, you said, yep, Fallout 5, I want to do that. That'll be next.
That was more of like a general, it will clearly be after Elder Scrolls 6 at some point.
Okay,
That's
well,
like, let me clarify that.
Why would he feel the need to walk that back? Like if Fallout 5 is next after the Elder Scrolls, why would he feel the need to walk it back and go, when I said that, I just meant it's coming after the Elder Scrolls. Okay, that's what I was saying. I mean, again, like I feel like this isn't even that controversial of a thing. Just take it in again, okay? Sorry, my face just floating.
committed to
Like
Elder
it's
Scrolls
weird.
6 is the next thing. You said it's in pre-production.
Yeah.
And then last year when we talked, you said, yep, Fallout 5, I want to do that. That'll be next.
That was more of like a general, it will clearly be after Elder Scrolls 6 at some point.
I don't know how else to interpret that than he does not want to say Fallout 5 is immediately after Elder Scrolls 6. It's why I've theorized that the plan prior to all of this was other stuff sprinkled in between, whether that be like Starfield 76 or whatever else. That it's always seemed to me like there was something else he wanted to put between Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5. I think that probably is no longer the case. I think Asha's probably stepping in and being like, no, we're not doing that. But to be clear, Todd has talked openly about Fallout 5. I don't know if you want to say that it's been like a formal announcement or not, but they have talked about it. They've acknowledged it. They just haven't put out a trailer or something. So this news today, like, I guess technically it's a formal acknowledgement of the projects, but all of this stuff was known previously. Like there's no breaking news in any of these statements.
I can tell. This is their kind of first time mentioning that. They say in their blog post that Fallout 5 is their kind of long-range destination. They also announced remasters for Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, which had been heavily rumored in the past. I think everybody knew that they were coming, but had not been confirmed until now. No news on release dates for those two.
Like more leaked, I guess, because the documents from the FTC hearings were real documents leaked confirming Fallout 3 remake was happening. The Fallout New Vegas remaster was rumored by like one or two people for a while, but it seems to be very early. It seems like that was greenlit late last year. So very, very early. Like New Vegas remaster, I don't think is coming out until probably realistically like 2029 or 2030. Like I think it's a long ways off, but Fallout 3 was originally supposed to launch in like 2024. So we'll see.
This is the most interesting. They confirmed my report from last week that they will be collaborating with Obsidian on a Fallout project. Not saying anything about it, just saying, hey, we're confirming that we're working with Obsidian on a new Fallout game. We'll share more down the road in the future.
This is also interesting that after that happened, Bethesda was willing to call up Jason and ask him if he wanted to do an interview because Jason spoiled the surprise again. Okay. Like to be clear, Jason reported on the Obsidian thing before anybody else. They just confirmed it. They wanted that news to break with this post, I'm sure. I'm sure this is the post where they wanted it to go viral because, oh my God, they're doing an Obsidian Fallout game. Oh my God, so exciting. But he spoiled the surprise. And they still wanted to talk to him, which is kind of crazy.
Couple more news nuggets from today's announcement. More Fallout Shelter stuff coming. They're doing a new Fallout 76 expansion that is a prequel story to Fallout 3 called Raven Rock that's coming out next year. Seems pretty clear that the Fallout 3 remaster is going to come next year at some point. I think that's safe to say. They talk about how they're currently making Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5 on Creation Engine 3, which is their proprietary technology. Fallout 5 is in pre-production. They're saying, I think they want to hint that maybe Fallout 5 is in kind of simultaneous development to Elder Scrolls 6, so you won't be waiting until 2040 to play Fallout 5.
Yeah, that's also, I think, very much an Asha thing. Like, you better not take till 2035 to get this out. Like, you got to get it out fast.
They talk about how ZeniMax
I did speed it up a little. I'm sorry.
Online Studios, which is the studio behind The Elder Scrolls Online, which laid off a lot of staff last week as part of the massive reorganization that Xbox did. They talk about how they are going to, in addition to supporting Elder Scrolls Online, they are going to partner with Bethesda Game Studios on the Elder Scrolls franchise. In other words, they're going to support the main studio, BGS. They're going to be a support studio for Elder Scrolls stuff. Talk about Season 3 of Fallout being on the way. Talk a little bit about Starfield updates coming. That's kind of the main news. And so I asked Todd Howard, I got a chance to sit down with Todd Howard for about 20 minutes to talk about some of this stuff. He didn't get super specific on a lot. He dodged some questions, not going to lie. But actually, it was really interesting because he's a fascinating...
Todd dodged questions? What? Todd. He's a pro. He's a pro. I get it. Okay. He's been media trained. Joseph Fares, the guy from Hazelight, the F the Oscars guy. Todd is the opposite of that. Like, Todd will not say something in an interview he didn't mean to say. It's why I feel okay with taking interview snippets and being like, why did he say it that way? Because you better believe he's staring in the mirror. I just want to be clear. I said Fallout 5 will come at some point after Elder Scrolls 6. Will come after Elder Scrolls 6. Will come after Elder Scrolls. Like, he's rehearsing. He knows what he's doing. Okay. He is media trained through and through. He will dodge, dip, duck, dive, dodge. Like, he will do it however he needs to do it. It's very hard to get him to answer a difficult question. And he's not going to be that candid with you if he doesn't want to. And I get the feeling, I would love to know Jason's thoughts. Maybe he'll get to it. I get the feeling like this was not Todd's idea to talk to Jason. Okay.
Guy, and I always enjoy talking to him. So I asked him, I got a little, the stuff he dodged specifically is about the Obsidian project. He didn't really want to get into how that came about. Why now, why it just happened. I think there's maybe a story to be told there another time, but Howard didn't want to get into it. He told me that I'm going to read a little bit from the transcript that I have here.
Yeah, because I think, call it intuition. I think that Asha stepped in and was like, we're doing this. Suck it up. Suck it up. I know you don't want to give the keys to the kingdom to Obsidian to let them work on stuff. That's what we're doing. I think it's like none of this is stuff Todd's particularly thrilled about. Even talking to Jason, I think he's smile, nod. I don't think he's thrilled about any of it.
He told me that he is good friends with Obsidian, talks to Fergus Urquhart, their CEO, all the time. When I asked him, I said, hey, have they gone to you in the past to pitch Fallout games? And he said, well, we all talk, and hey, this would make sense when the timing is right. And so I said, well, what made the timing right now? And he said, quote, that would be spoiler-ish, which I thought was pretty funny. He talked a little bit about, I asked him, hey,
that would be spoilerish. That's what made the timing right. That seems to suggest that it's going to tie into the show, but if it was going to tie into the show, why wasn't it greenlit a year ago or 2 years ago when the show first popped off? I don't know what that means. Okay.
Is Obsidian going to be the lead on this, kind of like they were with Fallout New Vegas, with support and supervision from Bethesda Game Studios, or is it going to be more of a collaborative thing? What is that going to look like? He said, quote, it's going to be a collaboration and we're starting that now. And then he said, I would say the Fallout franchise all up is managed out of here, and our staff and our franchise team. So essentially Fallout is still going to be managed at BGS. It's still going to be supervised by BGS.
ML will certainly help with the story. This is, again, I understand why they want to keep control of the franchise stuff. It makes sense to have the franchise controlled in one central place. I get that, but I've just been so burned. And I mean, maybe to be fair, the last look at Fallout we really truly got was Fallout 4. I don't really count Fallout 76 for anything really canon or narrative. Maybe I should, but I've not been that impressed with their ability to manage the IP for a while. So I think hopefully they can understand why I kind of roll my eyes when I hear that they're in charge of the franchise. It's like, why? Why you? Anyway,
TBD how much of kind of the creative vision will be executed by, will be laid out by BGS versus Obsidian. I asked him about the engine, which I know a lot of people have been wondering if this new Obsidian Fallout game is going to be on the Bethesda proprietary creation engine toolset, or if it's going to be the Unreal engine, which Obsidian is more accustomed to. Yep. An engine, in case you're not familiar, a lot of times people use this kind of video game lingo, assuming that people know what they're talking about. And a lot of times people have no idea what an engine means, but they talk about it anyway. Essentially, an engine is kind of the framework of technology and tools that you use to create a game. It's very important on if you're actually working with the game and the technology and the tools. I think from a consumer perspective, a little bit less important than maybe people out there like to make it seem. Enthusiasts.
Yeah, I think for the average consumer, like going into Walmart buying a game, they see Unreal Engine and they expect like pretty graphics, probably like maybe there's some expectations in terms of the types of games that tend to be made with it, but I think pretty graphics is the thing that's commonly associated with Unreal, and then maybe lesser performance and like stuttering. Those are kind of like the most recognizable features or things tied to Unreal Engine. Whereas Creation Engine, I think people would more closely associate that, of course, with Bethesda games, but also with bugs and then load screens after Starfield. So, you know, they have their strengths and their weaknesses at the same time.
Gamers and YouTubers and the like, but still there are aspects of an engine that are visible to the customer, and when something is on the Creation Engine, I think there are indications of that in the way that the certain aspects of the technology work. But anyway.
When you load in, yeah, 10 times in a minute, yeah, for sure. Sorry, Spartan Toast, thank you for the sub.
Anyway, he wouldn't answer that. He said
also 8-bit Robotnik, thank you also for that.
Indications of that in the way that the certain aspects of the technology work. But anyway, he wouldn't answer that. He said, we'll talk about that when we talk about the game. And
no answer. Little dodge. I'm expecting it's because they don't even know yet. I'm sure they're having those conversations right now. I'm sure BGS wants it in the Creation Engine because then they can tie in creations, and I'm sure a lot of that money gets funneled back to BGS. But then I think for Obsidian, they're looking at it, they're like, hey, we don't use Creation Engine, we use Unreal. We can build it way faster and more efficiently in Unreal. Let us do that. And so, and also bear in mind, Obsidian has developed a lot of like questing and NPC systems and like RPG systems, all sorts of stuff for Outer Worlds and Avowed. So a lot of those things they built there, they can just bring over to a Fallout game, and they don't have to like start from scratch is all I'm saying. Whereas they would basically be starting from scratch, learning the tool set from the beginning if they moved over to Creation. So who knows? We'll see.
I mean, when I asked him about like how this all came together, if Obsidian had pitched games in the Fallout franchise before, and if BGS had said no to that, and no real answer. He said, we when I talked to Fergus and other people, what we would make when having those conversations, now is the right time. I asked him,
now is the right time because Asha yelled at me and said I have to. You know, just so much of this. I think when you're looking at the possible explanations, like what is more likely, that Todd had a change of heart, was like, you know what? It is time that we give fans what they've been asking for 15 years. It is time that we give the keys to the kingdom to other people to help us make these games, that I let go a little bit so that they can help us elevate the experiences for the fandom. Yes, now is the time. Or that the new CEO who has come in and started micromanaging some of their biggest IP and is like done with the way things used to be done with Phil Spencer, that she came in and said, get over yourself. You're doing it this way. I think it's more likely that Asha came in and just said, this is what's happening.
a little bit about why it's been so long since we've gotten a new Fallout game, especially with this hit show. A lot of people have been wondering, why was there new Fallout? No new Fallout game to coincide with the release of the Amazon show. He talked a little bit about Fallout 76 being enormous and putting a lot of resources into that. And he talked about, he said, I look at it from what does the franchise look like to the audience? I view TV as one chapter, and I view when is the franchise really, really healthy, and when can we execute whatever we're doing, whether it's a mobile game or a TV show or remasters, making sure that we execute those at the highest level. He said,
what about those satisfies your core audience, Todd Drew? Like, he's describing the show,
whatever we're doing, whether it's a mobile game or a TV show or remasters.
A mobile game or a TV show or remasters. None of those are new, like, narrative, like, single player games. It's, yeah, we have those remasters, and Fallout 76 is what he mentioned first. It's like he's allergic to talking about the thing that the gamers actually want, which is a new mainline narrative Fallout game. It's ridiculous. It's insane. Mobile games. You all have phones, don't you? We all know the Obsidian Fallout will be a mobile card game. Oh my God, please no. If that's what they are doing, can you imagine? Can you imagine the meltdown if they reveal the Obsidian game and it's a mobile game? Dude, that would be delicious. Todd's like, well, we just thought this was the best fit for them. We did a PowerPoint showing them what we wanted from them, and we thought this was more their speed. Can you imagine?
Making sure that we execute those at the highest level. He said our focus was 76 and the remasters and Fallout 5, and it's not that we wouldn't want it, it's finding the right pocket timing and everything that goes along with that. A couple other tidbits from our interview. I asked him a little bit about the layoffs because BGS actually laid off a few dozen people last week, including some long-timers, some people who had been with the studio for a very long time.
Yeah, one of their artists who had been there, I think, 27 years was laid off, which is crazy.
He said it's difficult for him, difficult for people to work together. He talked about how it's Bethesda's 40th anniversary and how there have been periods where we've gone through changes. He talks about how like in back in the 90s, the company almost went out of business, and then it became kind of ZeniMax 2.0, and now we're going through a change so that we focus best on the franchises and what we need to do to deliver for everybody. I talked to him a little bit about what it's been like managing a studio that has expanded from less than 100 people on Skyrim to now hundreds of people across multiple locations, offices all around North America for Starfield and now future games. It was interesting hearing his perspective on that. He talked a little bit about how like everybody has their own opinion on like what the right team size is, and how when he started at Bethesda back in the day, there was a team of maybe 10 people on a Terminator game, and then when that team doubles, going from 10 to 20, that's like holy crap! Like we just went from 10 to 20. That's unbelievable. And then it goes to 40, 60, 80, 100. And he talks about how, quote, there's always a period where everyone has their own opinion. That was the right one. He talks about the progression, and he talks about how like when they did expand from just having that Rockville, Maryland studio to 4 different studios at Bethesda, we went through a lot of growing pains. I won't sugarcoat it. It was tricky. We made a lot of mistakes. And he talked about how like they have a lot of learning to do, a lot of kind of now they're working with a lot of co-development partners, and still much learning to do. I personally find that to be a very interesting conversation, the topic of team sizes, and that's something I'll definitely address further down the road in future videos and reporting. I've written some stuff about that as well. And
I would love to have just it's my frustration with so much of the Todd stuff is that I feel like you can never be just like, you never get a candid direct interview. Like because I think it would be fascinating to hear the behind the scenes of how they went from Skyrim to eventually like Starfield, because the team was so huge by that point. When you factor in the development partners and stuff, the slide I've often showed you guys is from that Will Shen presentation that he did, where I showed you guys these slides where they show how many people worked on it. Like this is Moby Games credits. So this is kind of like the IMDb of video games. So you can actually see what devs worked on what and track them. But you can see on Skyrim, they have like 120 people, all BGS. That's where they all are. Like there's nobody spilling out from anywhere else, right? And then Fallout 4, they get some help from ZeniMax Online, or not ZeniMax Online, from someone. They get some help there. Fallout 76, they get some more help, some supporting teams elsewhere. And then it starts expanding with Fallout 76. Even more people are working on it. But I would argue as the teams have grown in size, the output has dropped and the quality's dropped. Like pretty clearly, there's a growing pain here. Whereas they've skyrocketed in terms of the number of heads working on projects, I don't think the quality has skyrocketed at the same time, I would argue. And so it makes you wonder, like, what is that process and how do you fix that? How do you make it so these people are actually operating on the same level as everybody else, same efficiencies? And it actually reminds me of this. I found this clip and I thought it did a good job of just describing how this stuff works. These are a lot of common business sayings that describe accurately some of the problems I think that a lot of these companies have experienced. This is a rapid fire of some of these laws of the business universe, okay? Take these in.
Work expands to fill Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the time you give it. Shrink the deadline, shrink the task. Hofstadter's
In other words, if you give a team 20 years to make a Fallout game, they will take 20 years to make the Fallout game because the work will expand to fill the time.
law. Everything takes longer than you expect, even when you account for Hofstadter's law. Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice what is adequately explained by carelessness or stupidity. The Pareto principle, or 80-20. Roughly 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort. The Peter principle. People get promoted until they reach a job they're bad at, and then stay there.
I like that one. Kind of explains, like, you know, the CEOs that end up getting promoted all the way up and then they just stay there forever.
Hick's law. More options means slower decisions. Cut the menu, decide faster.
Yeah, tight scope in the context of video games, tight scope, you can be more efficient.
Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it stops being a good measure. The Dunning-Kruger effect. The less you know, the more you overestimate how much you know. Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the right one. Chesterton's fence. Don't tear something down until you understand why it was built in the first place. Brooks's law. If you add more people to a project that's already late, it's going to be even more late because we underestimate coordination costs.
Which is true. Magically adding devs does not magically fix the game or make it come out faster or whatever. It doesn't make the game better just because you increase the budget. This is one of those things, like all of these studios that have gotten $200 to $300 million budgets, that's usually reflected in bigger team sizes, right? That does not correlate to higher quality, to bigger games, to anything. because a lot of the time those other laws that we described start eating away at it. There's coordination costs. There's costs for having too many options, for having enough time to experiment, do wacky stuff. You end up wasting a lot of time and resources on things that never end up in the game. You know, so it just starts to get to the point where you're burning money that you didn't need to burn. Like, I really think that a lot of these games that have $200 million budgets, $200 million budgets could end up being just as good with $100 million budgets and just little pieces of the scope dialed back. Like, I think the best example of tight scope delivering a solid game in recent memory was Mafia: The Old Country. Tighter scope, much tighter budget, much smaller team, but the game was baller, dude. It did exactly what it wanted to do. It's telling a story. It has a world for you to explore. They set the story within the map, but they're not trying to make it freaking GTA 6. They understand that it's not going to be like a full-blown open world game with dynamic encounters and all this. It's not that kind of game. And it worked great because they limited the choices that could be made. They kept the scope in line, and then they put a pretty strict deadline and budget on it. They needed to figure it out.
I asked him a little bit about the state of Elder Scrolls 6. He didn't want to talk about the timing. He talked about how, like, as most people know, Todd Howard prefers to wait to talk about these games until as close to release as possible. But he said, like, they felt like this was a good time to just kind of, like, lay out this roadmap. And finally, I asked him about retirement, and he told me, well, the truth is there was a period of time a while back where I pondered, what does it look like? Not is it imminent, but what does it look like? And I no longer do. I see the work we're doing. I just love it. I love working with these people. It's really not something I think about. And he says, some folks in our industry that are a little older than me, they're just making great stuff too. So it's not something I've been thinking about. So yeah, interesting conversation there.
Not interested in retiring, which is good. I mean, honestly, if I was in his shoes and I was getting to make video games and make millions of dollars while doing it, I wouldn't want to retire. You know, why would you? Why would you? You're living your dream. You are in charge of a massive company.
At shotgun
Why would you?
Zealot donated $19.99
Thank you.
through Super Chat. Sawyer spoke positively about Bethesda's engine in the past. Said it was easy to work with, interview or one of his YouTube videos. Don't recall how long ago that was.
Oh, it cut off. Don't recall how long ago that was, and Studio/Engine changed significantly since then. Thank you for the 20, super generous. I'll have to dig it up. I do think, like, we meme a lot on the creation engine. They make it easy. We meme a lot on it, but there are strengths to it and benefits to using it. Pretty much everybody that has modded with it or been a developer on it says it is fairly easy to use. It's easy to do a lot pretty quickly. It has its own drawbacks and weaknesses, of course. You know, whether that be prone to it being prone to bugs or the load screen issues or, you know, limitations on overall fidelity, stuff like that. There are limitations and weaknesses, but it does have strengths. It's important to remember it has strengths. It's not like they're, you know, it's all bad. It has strengths. And even like ease of modding is another key feature. You know, you wouldn't get things like Fallout London, for example, if that game were made in Unreal Engine. I just don't think you would. So there are strengths for sure. But there's also weaknesses, and it's just a matter of kind of gauging those and balancing those two things at the same time and figuring out what makes sense. You know, that's what's tricky, is figuring out how to do that, because there is no perfect solution. You go Unreal Engine for the Obsidian Fallout game. That has benefits, like graphically it'll be pretty. It'll probably be more modern in terms of overall presentation, in terms of seamless exploration around the maps and stuff. But it'll have the downside of probably not supporting mods, for example, at launch. It probably will not be as easy for the team to work quickly with. You know, there might be downsides to it. So nothing's perfect, but it's just a matter of figuring out what makes sense for that team specifically.
Make sure to check out my story at Bloomberg this morning if you want to see the written version of that interview and this big news. So here's a little backstory on why this is such a strange thing that happened. In 2013, I did a series of stories about Bethesda, including a story about the turbulent development of what at the time was called Doom 4, a story about Arcane, the developer within Bethesda, the studio, being kind of forced to work on a game that would later be called Prey, but at the time was being called Prey 2. A lot of weird backstory there I won't get into, but basically I did a story about this, and some people came out and denied it, and then I published some emails showing that that their denial was a lie. And then finally, at the end of the year, I published a story about Fallout 4. And the context there is that there was this kind of like fake ARG that someone put up called The Survivor or something, $22.99 or something like that. And a lot of people fell for it. A lot of people thought it was a real ARG for Fallout. And so my story...
Yeah, to be clear, if you don't know, ARGs or augmented reality games. There was this guy, I don't think we ever found out who it was, but somebody made like a really compelling game with like puzzles and timing stuff, tying into bits of lore and then hidden messages and codes everywhere. People thought circa 2013 that it was Bethesda teasing Fallout 4, that it was them setting up the reveal, and people got really excited. Turns out it was just a hoax. It was a fan just doing something wacky and stupid. We've done segments where we looked back at it, and it was legitimately pretty cool, but it was totally fake. It was totally fake.
I debunked that, but at the same time I said, well, look, despite this, Fallout 4 is real, it's set in Boston, and here's a little bit of evidence for that. Now, despite what you might have seen on the internet, because there's kind of a misconception about this, I did not post, and I was at Kotaku at the time, we did not post anything about the story of the game, and we did not post any spoilers of the story of the game, we did not leak the script, we did not do anything other than just kind of share a few a few details of script pages that were unrelated to story, and that were just kind of like, here is evidence that this game is real, it's set in Boston, that's all we're going to share. And what actually happened was I was sent some script pages from the script of the game, including the beginning of the game, where you find out, spoilers for the first 30 minutes of Fallout, but essentially you are put in this cryogenic freezing chamber. You are jumped forward in time, and your son is kidnapped and your spouse is killed. And that was all on the script pages that I got in 2013. I deliberately chose not to share those in the Kotaku article because I didn't want to spoil the story for people. So it's kind of ironic and annoying that there's somehow this, I've seen on Reddit all the time, people saying, Jason Schreier spoiled the story for Fallout 4, when that actually is not what happened.
I mean, we pulled up the original article here, and the article said, we pulled up the original article from December of 2013, and he does say and outline some things that would end up being true of the story, like it's there being the Institute, Preston Garvey being inside there. You do a quest salvaging a fusion core from the museum. Some of these things, the player begins the game in a cryogenic sleep chamber, could be just invented for this. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, he didn't spoil the story or any sort of specific plot lines, but it does have, tidbits and plot points that do end up being accurate and being true. So yeah, he didn't share like the full thing, but, I could see how some people would see that and be like, well, it effectively spoiled that reveal,
Anyway, so between the Fallout story, the Doom story, and the Arcane story, some people at Bethesda, including their PR boss at the time, made the decision to blacklist me and blacklist Kotaku. And that was 2013. We tried for a very long time to talk to them, to have conversations with them off the record, to try to clear the air, to try to explain why we do what we do, talk through reporting and why it's important to us, yada, yada, yada. Not so much because of like review copies. I didn't really care about that. Maybe other people did. I cared more about getting a chance to talk to people like Todd Howard, which I'd gotten to do when Skyrim came out in 2011, and it was really cool. I found him fascinating. I think he's a really interesting designer. I know he enjoyed talking to me, et cetera, et cetera. So that just kind of lasted for a very long time. When I came to Bloomberg in 2020, the blacklist continued. Some of my colleagues here had some conversations with, as Xbox took over Bethesda, which was at the end of 2020 into 2021, some of my colleagues here were kind enough to have conversations with them, trying to get them to ease off. It was kind of like a very long work in progress about like trying to figure out what that might look like. And then a few years later, the person who actually made the call to blacklist me left. But still, it was a little while before any of that could be solved. And then yesterday, talking to Todd,
I think who was in charge? I don't think it was Pete Hines, was it? Circa 2013? Maybe it was Pete Hines. If you don't remember Pete Hines, he was like the big man in charge of all of this, of all the marketing stuff at Bethesda for a long time. Let's see. Yes, here. So you can see like he went and head of publishing, global marketing, yes, senior vice president of global marketing and communications from October 1999 through November of 2022. So he was the guy. And then he retired in November of 2023. He was the guy. So I think absolutely that's the one that made the call. Pete, I think Pete blacklisted him. I think Pete's the guy. That's fascinating. Peter blacklisting people. This is a little inside baseball. Okay. Right after all of the reports of like Xbox layoffs, of some people, basically a lot of stuff was happening in the last handful of weeks at Xbox, where it seems like a lot of managers and supervisors were reshuffled, rearranged, fired, got it, like things moved around a lot, especially within marketing, within some of those teams. Right when that happened, me and my team were reached out to by like 3 or 4 separate people who previously pretended like yours truly did not exist, which is interesting. It makes me think that, similar to Jason, it just takes one person high up in the chain of command that says this person is not to be spoken with. And then that person's gone, and all of a sudden everybody else is like, oh, finally. Okay, anyway. And they're back to business. So I wonder if it's a similar thing where like Pete leaves, the gate opens up, and then like Asha is also taking a perspective of like, we're not doing things that way anymore. We're not going to like blacklist people because they say things that upset us. Okay. we need to grow up, basically. So I wonder if that's a similar thing here where they're just like, Todd, you talk to Jason. Like, we're not blacklisting anymore. Jason's perspective also, it's interesting because there's also been reporting and leaks and rumors for a long time, for years, that Todd specifically, I don't blame him, hates leaks. Like, he hates when anything related to their games leak. There were leaks for Starfield back in I think it was 2019 or something. Very, very early little snippets of what would end up being Starfield. I mean, it was confirmed. Early Starfield leaks. Yeah, these really early screenshots. I remember when these came out and people were like, no way, is this real? And it ended up being real. I mean, now we know that this is what the game would end up being. When was this from? Let's see. Oh, this is April 22. So this was even earlier than that. I thought, but apparently not. It says 2022, but I think the build, if I recall correctly, I think the build was, yeah, it's from a 2018 build. That's why I'm thinking of it. Okay. I'm tracking. Yeah, as you can see here, 5 new leaked pictures from the 2018 build of Starfield. So this is from 2018. They had this in the game. This is like the most recognizable one. But these leaks happened, and apparently Todd was like livid, like pacing in the studio, like actually really, really, really mad. And I don't blame him. Like, you work on something for years and then it leaks like this, that would suck. But I've always suspected that Todd was more complicit in the the blacklisting of Jason than maybe would be let on publicly. I don't think he was like, oh no, come on. I don't think he was ever that upset about it.
That was actually the first time that I have talked to anyone at Bethesda in an official on-the-record capacity since before 2013. And so I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that the people at Bethesda and Xbox and Todd Howard, of course, I really appreciate that they were willing to do that and willing to start the process of just kind of getting past that blacklist and moving on, because I don't really think blacklists are good for anybody. And no. I very much stand by all of that reporting that I did. I don't have any regrets about that. I do have some regrets about stories I've done at Kotaku and stories I've done over the years, just because I think anyone who's been doing this for long enough has some regrets about things they've published or would have done things a little bit differently. But in this case, I have absolutely no regrets because, as I mentioned, we were very careful about that Fallout stuff, very deliberate to not post spoilers, and just I do not think that it was something that we should have been blacklisted over by any means.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Blacklisting in the industry also doesn't tend to help anything. Like, consumers are smart, dude. Like, when you guys notice that X person is only ever doing interviews with people that blow smoke up their butt, you start to notice it, you know? Like, you start to notice it. It's like, hey, why does nobody ever question this guy? Why does nobody ever ask a hard question or a follow-up? Like, he just said something that's clearly BS, and we're just smiling and nodding. Like, what is happening? Why is there no follow-up? You can tell, and it stinks, man. It stinks when you start to like sense that there's no like accountability in that way. And to be clear, like, I think there's a place for sort of maybe fluff piece interviews is the technical term. I'm not sure. But like, you go on Jimmy Fallon, you're not going to be asked hard-hitting questions about anything. That's the point. You're going there to promote something. It's light, feel good. That makes sense. I'm fine with Jimmy Fallon interviews. That's fine. My problem is when journalists do puff pieces, and when somebody's claiming to be like, oh yeah, I do reporting on the games industry, but then the moment somebody comes in that they're a fan of, they're just like, tell me, I love this game. Some people didn't love the game as much as I did, but I loved the game, Todd. What do you say to people that didn't like it as much as I did? Because I loved it, to be clear. I love your work. But what would you say to people who are crazy and didn't like it as much as I did? Well, I would say that those people like it less than you did. Ah, brilliant, Todd. Brilliant. Like, you know, you gotta have some pushback. And it doesn't actually help, I think, the promotion of your game, because people smell it and it stinks, you know? And to their credit, this always kind of blows people's minds. But The number one example of a company that does not blacklist like this, that may surprise you, and I'm telling you after doing this for years, the number one company that handles this the best way I've ever seen is Ubisoft. I don't know why, but I have made videos. I called Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is their most like successful Assassin's Creed game ever. I called it a travesty of open world design. Thought it was dreadful. Many things I would do differently, I'll just say. Called it a travesty. And like a week or two later, they're like, yeah, well, we'll get you next time. Yeah, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Yeah, well, dude, that's such a great moment. Like you can tear them apart. I've openly called for like the CEO to be fired. I said his son was the Jaden Smith of gaming. I've not been gentle, I would say, but they still will interact and talk and be very, very open about everything. Because they're like, you know what? When you speak positively about something we've done, it'll mean that much more. Because people will be like, oh, the guy that called the new head of Assassin's Creed the Jaden Smith of gaming, he really liked Black Flag Resynced. Oh, well, that actually means a lot more to me than like another random TikToker. Did you know that this Assassin's Creed game is the best Assassin's Creed game ever made? Like that doesn't mean much to you because it's just more, you know? But when you go and you talk to somebody that maybe is telling you, the audience stuff that is harder to listen to, when they come out and speak positively about you, it means a lot more. That's why I've never understood the approach of some of these companies to like blacklist, or if you are like seen as too critical of their stuff, that they'll just shun you, you know? It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense, you know? Jaden Smith of gaming. Well, I mean, it's just, he went from like a crypto scam company to alleged scam company to being in charge of Vantage Studios. And it's like, are you really telling me you were the best equipped for that? Are you really going to say that? But okay. So anyway, I agree that blacklisting doesn't get anything done. It doesn't help the studios either, or the companies either. It doesn't fix anything. Okay. Being clear and transparent goes a lot farther. And you know, when you have somebody that historically has been really hard on BGS or really hard on Ubisoft or really hard on Rockstar or really hard on EA or whatever, and then they come out and they're like, yeah, actually this game is really good. That's going to mean a lot more to the audience and to the consumer you're trying to buy your game. That's going to mean a lot more to them than if just another guy that's toxically positive all the time ends up being really positive about another thing again, you know?
So yeah, I really appreciate
Help me understand.
the people at Bethesda, the people at Xbox, and Todd. I appreciate that they were willing to do this, and I told Todd, and hopefully he agreed, that I would love to sit down with him for a way more in-depth conversation rather than just about the news of the day, about game development and about maybe when Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, maybe we can get in depth on that, because I find that stuff really fascinating, and I think he's a really interesting and smart dude. I'm sure many of you have seen him talk over the years. He's always fascinating to hear talk about game design and game development. So yeah, that's the story. It's a wild one, and yeah, I mean, if you see people out there on Reddit being like, yeah, Jason, Kotaku deserve to be blacklisted by Bethesda because they spoiled the story of Fallout 4, know that it is not true, and it is demonstrably not true, because you can just pull up that article. I think Kotaku has removed all the images from their articles because our parent company in recent years was a bit of a disaster, and Jim Spanfeller and crew for some reason decided to pull all of the images from old articles, so you can't actually see the script pages anymore. But you can see that there's nothing in it about story spoilers. There's nothing in it that's like really spoils any part of the plot at all. We were very judicious about that, not to do that. All right, so Fallout news hit. You'll see it. Make sure you check out my story at Bloomberg, and I might actually be back later today for a second video. They call me 2 video a day Screier.
Sorry, that was funny. So there you go. I mean, it sounds like a pretty straightforward interview, nothing too crazy. As I mentioned at the top, there's also another one that they did at Windows Central. Again, these are I think mainly just interviews meant to just reaffirm the news that was already established. Just the same bullet points as the post from Bethesda. Yeah, huge respect for Obsidian. As you can see, top of my most faithful Xbox faithful right now is Microsoft's huge cuts to gaming. I asked Todd how he and the team are doing given what's going on. Todd said, great question. I've been doing this a long time. Whenever you've worked with people for, in some cases, many decades, and they're no longer here, that's really personally difficult and difficult for our teams. This is one thing why I think the layoffs were pretty clearly from outside of Todd's control, because they fired people he's worked with for like close to 3 decades. That one artist, she had been there 27 years. Imagine anybody you've known for 27 years. If you had the choice between firing her and firing the guy that's been there for 6 months, you're probably firing the guy that's been there 6 months. Like I do not think that this was like Todd's choice or Todd's doing, you know. I really don't. Maybe it was, and you know, he's actually just that hardcore. I'd be surprised. I'd be really surprised. Yeah, so this looks almost identical to the same answer that he got from Jason Schreier. We had to change who we were and how we did things then. And then when we kind of became ZeniMax and did a bunch of things, and then we had to change again in 2016, moving different studios. How do we support these franchises? And I think we're at another change moment for us and how we support each other, what we do with these games for our fans. I mean, it sounds like he gave basically the same answers all over again. That he gave Jason Schreier. So, you know, pretty much the same exact stuff. You sort of say, is there a way or window or pocket where we could do something similar that really, really made sense? And so we're excited about the opportunity working together. It's funny, the word pocket I thought was weird when Jason described that, but that seems to be the same word used here. Remember I said that Todd is like very, very media trained? Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, like look at this. This is what I was talking about. See, it's like the same exact phrasing.
And Fallout 5, and it's not that we wouldn't want it, it's finding the right pocket timing and everything that goes along.
It's like finding the right pocket timing. And then here, you sort of say, is there a way or window or a pocket where we could do something really, really make sense? I think Todd had all of these answers ready. I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same answers, same phrasing, same word choice, everything. It's very funny. Anyway, fascinating, and I think pivotal moment, even if the news is not really news, even if it's just the same old that we've seen time and time again. It's just, I think, a signal that Asha wants them to get their act together and put deadlines and clearly say, this is what's happening. We need to get on it. And we're not wasting time with all of this anymore. We need to get it out the door and be more efficient. And it makes sense. I mean, you've got, again, a golden goose that they've been sitting on, doing nothing with for a while, and there's no reason they should be doing that. They should have had this stuff out a long time ago, and now they're finally getting around to it. So we'll see. As for any like actual actionable information in here, there's really not much. I mean, again, it's the same stuff we've seen and heard time and time again, but doubling down on creations, doubling down on Fallout, Elder Scrolls. The biggest stuff, I think, is that other teams are coming in to work on this stuff now. ESO's team at ZeniMax Online, I think, is going to be moved over and mainly turn into a support studio to finish Elder Scrolls 6 faster. And then I think Obsidian is going to become the secondary Fallout studio, kind of like you have multiple studios working on Call of Duty, and they're going to just start kind of alternating Fallout games. And I think that's what they're probably going to do. But even that is still probably 3, 4, 5 years away. Like, it's still a long ways off. So even though this is like really exciting, because it's like, finally, something's happening. It's happening probably next generation, realistically. You know, I just think that that's probably what's happening. Phil was a mistake for Xbox. I think Phil was, for better or worse, a true fan of gaming, and that made him a very unique executive. But I think he was too nice for his own good, and I think because he was a fan, it kind of blinded him to some hard decisions that needed to be made. Even though he's a fan of Todd, he needed to tell Todd, enough is enough. This is unacceptable. Like, we need to get on it. And he should have been saying that to a lot of the studios in their portfolio that have been taking forever to do much of anything. Like, they should not have ended up in this position. And now they're going to try to address it and fix it. So we'll see. At the very least, you can see that there's a good amount of interest and excitement around this news. You can see that the post from Bethesda is at 74,000 likes, 6.8 million views. Like, there are millions of people who want the next Fallout game, who want the next Elder Scrolls. They're not that interested in ESO, or ESO would have 7 million active players, or Fallout 76 would have 7 million active players. They don't. They're waiting for the next big game from Obsidian or from BGS in these franchises, and they just got to get them out. It's crazy it took until 2026 to get them, like, the ball rolling, but here we are. We'll see. And at the very least, you know, if the ball starts rolling, where they're going to try to open the door more for press and media to have a more open conversation and relationship with Bethesda, I think that would be a good move, because again, It doesn't actually help the studio to blacklist and lock down. I really don't think it actually makes anything better. So call me Todd. I don't know if we should do like a formal interview. I think we should play chess against each other for charity and, you know, donate it to like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children or something, like a good charity like that. We'll just play chess against each other, and then at the very end just go, who's laughing now? And then the video ends. And everyone's like, why didn't you talk about anything? Why didn't you talk about games? And we'll just not. I think that would be fun. I think that'd be fun. Shout out to the chess club. Damn right. Yeah, make the BGS chess club. That would be great. Imagine I finally talked to Todd, and the whole video, we don't say a word about video games. It's just a 30-minute chess game. I think that would be funny.